Hi guys, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Here is the group 1. Today we would like to explain a little bit about sociolinguistic, that the material about multilingual speech communities. Here is our member. There is Diglossia Radening Sarkan, Mirdawati, Siti Nurain binti Sule, Sabda Rahayu Asifawardani, and the last is Tata Cahaya Berliana. So the submaterial today that we will be deliver, the first is linguistic repertoire and domain of language use. Second is modeling variety or code choice. Third is diglossia. Fourth is polyglossia, and fifth is code switching or code mixing. So let's start it. First is linguistic repertoire. So, linguistic repertoire is the set of language varieties used in the speaking and writing practices of a speech community. In other words, the linguistic repertoire of speech community includes all the linguistic varieties, such as registers, dialect, style, accent, and etc. Next is domain of language use. Based on Fishman, as stated in Marjohan A., domain is sociocultural construct abstracted from topics of communication, relationship between communicators, and locales of communication in accord with their situation of society and the area of activity of speech community in such a way that individual behavior and social patterns can be distinguished from each other and yet related to each other. So, typical domain in speech community include two. First is low domain and high. First is low domain and second is high domain. For example, low domain is family. Example for high domain is religion, employment, education, and friendship. For example is like family members. Family members are obviously the main addresses in the family domain. The home location would be the setting, and everyday family matters would be the topics. So the next material will be delivered with my friend.
Alright, we go to the next material. It's about modeling variety or code choice. Speakers model their code choice depending on the different factors. Domain is clearly a very general concept which draws on three important social factors in code choice, such as participants, setting, and topic. However, it is a very simple model summarizing the norms of language use for the community. Modeling is important for description and comparison, or we can say that modeling priority is needed. Why is needed? Because it gives two reasons. The first one, of course, gives information about which variety is suitable or is considered appropriate in a certain domain. We will find that the certain variety is related to a certain domain. Then the second is we can compare different code choice in different speech community. The same domain, but different code choice. So it gives us the description of linguistic behavior of the communities.
Okay, next, I will explain about Diglossia. Diglossia is a situation in which two varieties of the same language are used under different conditions within a community, often by the same speakers. The three crucial features of Diglossia. The first one is two distinct varieties of the same language are used in the community, with one regarded as a high or H variety and the other or low or L variety. The second one is each variety is used for quite distinct function. H and L complement each other. Then the third is no one use the age variety in everyday conversation. Next, areas in which age and L differ. The first is function. H and L differ different purposes. Native speaker will find it odd if anyone use H in an L domain or L in an H domain. Prestige. H more highly value. Then, literary heritage. Literature normally in H variety, no written use of L. Acquisition. L variety learned first. H acquired through schooling. In standardization, H strictly standardized, but L rarely standardized. In stability, Diglossia generally stable. Then in grammar, H more complex than L. On the lexicon, often shared, but differentiation in vocabulary. Next, on the phonology, two kind of system. H and L share same phonological elements, but H has more complicated morphophonemics, or where H has construct that L lacks but may borrow. The example, the standard classical Arabic language is the high variety in Arab countries, and it is used for writing and for formal function. But in vernacular or colloquial Arabic is the low variety used for informal speech situation. It is behave for Latin and Germany language. For the attitude to H versus L, in H variety has a norm, has a respect and prestigious, while in L variety, below average, not very respected, and non-prestigious. The next will be presented by my friends.
For Polyglossia, what are characteristics of Polyglossia? First, situation where two or more distinct codes or varieties are used for clearly distinct purposes. Second, it includes two contrasting varieties, high and low, but in general, it refers to communities that regularly use more than two languages. For example, Polyglossia in Singapore. In H varieties, it consists Mandarin as a Singapore English formal variety, and L varieties, it consists Cantonese and Hokkien as Singapore English informal variety. Both Mandarin and formal Singapore English can be considered H varieties alongside different L varieties. Mandarin function as an H variety in relation to at least two L varieties, Hokkien and Cantonese. Informal Singapore English is an L variety alongside the more formal H variety. So for this speech community, there are two H varieties and a number of L varieties in a complex relation. So it is a useful term for describing situation where more than two distinct codes are used for clearly distinct purposes.
Next is code switching or code mixing, the use of more than one code, that is language variety or style, by a speaker within an utterance or discourse or between different interlocutors or situations. And code switching itself is a term in linguistics referring to using more than one language or variety in conversations. Sometimes the bilingual speakers getting problem when they're having a conversation with another bilingual, so they switch their language from code to another in the construction of sentence. And then code mixing is the other phenomenon closely related to code switching, and it is usually occurs when conversants use both language together, switch between two languages to the extent that they change from one tongue to the other in the course of a single utterance. And this code mixing takes place without a change of topic and can involve various levels of language such as phonology, morphology, grammatical structure, or lexical items. Next is switching for affective functions. So it is to express affective rather than referential meaning. You guys can see the example in our book, page 38, example 13. So I'll just read the example. Polly is a young British black woman. She speaks standard English with a West Midlands accent, as well as patois, a variety of Jamaican Creole, learned from her parents. On one occasion, a school teacher annoyed her intensely by criticizing a story Polly had written about British West Indians. In particular, he corrected the use of patois by one of her characters, something he knew nothing about. Her response was to abuse him in patois, swearing at him only just below her breath. The effect was electrifying. He seemed terrified. He threatened to send her to the headmaster, but in fact he didn't, and she noted with satisfaction that he left her alone after that. From the example, the black girl Polly switched from standard English to patois to express affective meaning, that is, her feeling, not referential meaning. For cursing or abuse someone in patois, and they are unable to send her to the headmaster because they misunderstood her words. The last is topic and attitudes to code switching. So for the topic, people may switch code within a speech even to discuss a particular topic. Bilinguals often find it is easier to discuss particular topic in one code rather than another. Next is attitudes to code switching. So people are often unaware of the fact that they code switch, and when their attention is drawn to this behavior, however, many tend to apologize for it. And reaction to code switching styles are negative in many communities, despite the fact that proficiency in intrasentential code switching requires good control of both codes. These attitudes toward code switching are linked to personality. There are some factors that affect this code switching. The first one is participants, solidarity, and status. Okay, some people sometimes switch code within a domain or social situation, and then there is some obvious change in the situation, such as the arrival of a new person, and it is easy to explain the switch. Also, a code switch may be related to a particular participants or addressee. A speaker may similarly switch to another language as a signal of group membership and shared ethnicity with an addressee. Also, switches motivated by the identity and relationship between participants often express a move along the solidarity or social distance dimension. The second one is metaphorical switching. It is the use of a code as a means to symbolically redefine the interaction. And metaphorical switching has an affective dimension to it. The choice of code carries symbolic meaning, that is, the language fits the message. Next is lexical borrowing. So it is obviously important to distinguish this kind of switching from switch, which can be accounted for by lack of vocabulary in a language. When we speaking a second language, for instance, we usually will often use a term from our mother tongue or first language because we don't know the appropriate word in our second language. These switchers are triggered by lack of vocabulary. The third is linguistic constraints. Okay, there are very general rules for switching which apply to all switching behavior regardless of the codes or varieties involved. There are searching for universal linguistic constraint on switching. It has been suggested, for example, that switch only occur within sentence or intra-sentential switching at points where the grammar of both language match each other. This is what we call the equivalence constraint. So we may only switch between an adjective and a noun if both languages use the same order for that adjective and noun. Okay. There are three types of code switching. The first one is intrasentential switching. The second is intersentential switching. And the third is emblematic or text switching. Let's move to the next slide because I will explain it with the example. The first is intrasentential switching. Intrasentential switching refers to the switching that occurs inside the same clause or sentence. As we can see in this example, this morning I hantar my baby to the cat babysitter tulah. We can see in this example the speaker switch between two codes, that is Malay and English, within a single sentence. Now is intersentential switching. So intersentential switching is a code switching that happens when the speaker speaks a clause in one language and then uses different clause in a different language. Let's see the example. Baju kamu bagus, I like it. This utterance classified into intersentential switching, where the speaker switch Indonesian to English in a different utterance. Next is emblematic or text switching. Code switching that can be described as insertion of text from one language into an utterance that it is in another language. Let's look at the example. By the way, kamu mau makan apa? And the second example. Tenang aja, semua pasti baik-baik aja. Okay? As we can see here, by the way is a text switching, and the words okay also a text switching. By the way is text switching that plays in the beginning of the sentence, while okay is at the end of the sentence.
Okay, I think that's all from our groups. Hope you enjoy this video and hope you understand what we explain about this material. If you have some question, just ask for it. See